Hello, and a big welcome back to all my subscribers. And if you're not a subscriber, what's wrong with you? Press the button. Right. So, this is the next one in my series about writing an emulator. And actually, I've spent most of the time recently writing the assembler. The emulator doesn't really need a lot of changes, although I have had to make some modifications based on the commands that I'm doing. But for the most part, I got to version 8 of the assembler and it works for just about everything. Now, I was doing a significant amount of testing, so I've got a lot of test cases here um, with all of the various instructions and how they can be done. So an immediate integer, an immediate hex number, an immediate binary number, loading data from memory, storing data into memory, add, subtract, jump, branch, blah, blah, blah. So this one was basically to make sure that it would, in fact, jump properly and things. I spent a significant amount of time trying to make the branch and the jump work properly, and it never would until I eventually worked out that I was trying to set it to the instruction after the label, but in fact, what I have to do is set it to the instruction before the label, because the first thing the fetch and execute does is advance the program counter by one. So, uh, when I do the branch on not equal, branch on equal, or jump, I need to set it to the instruction before the label. It won't run that. It'll just automatically increment it, and it'll arrive at the next instruction. So, it took me a long time to work out what was happening. Obviously, I spend a significant amount of time um, parsing the logs to see what was passed, what the opcode was, what the machine code was that eventually was produced, what the registers are, etc. And I did a lot of these, testing the loops, adds, shift right, shift left, making sure that everything worked properly, that the jumps worked properly. So I have a lot of test cases here. And then I had a lot of test cases where it should work, right? And then I did a whole load of test cases where there should be errors. And just to get a decent error message out if you've mistakenly, you know, not put in the correct register, or you've left the hash mark out, or like this when you've put numbers, letters instead of numbers. Um, so the advantage of this is I now know that all of my commands work as of version 7. So I went through each and every test case and I made sure it all worked. And then I saved that, and I've now started on a version, 8.1, which can do this because what I had before didn't recognize directives. So it didn't recognize the dot data or dot global or dot text or anything like that. And so I've now ripped apart my emulator. This is the old one here, but I've ripped it apart so that this pre-pass and assemble are now broken out. It now collects all of the directives into their own block. So dot data and dot text, it operates on each one independently, and then it puts it all together and it spits it back out. Now I have a question if anybody is any good at this sort of thing. I have the data and I've given it a data block, and I stick it in a hexadecimal area. So I put it in the top of the memory load, and what I've had to do is basically put the instructions in the bottom and then load the data in the top. But actually this doesn't load well into my emulator, and I'm just wondering if anybody else has ever done this, how they handled the data. Do you just stick the data immediately after the instructions? And if so, how do you work out which bit is data and which bit is instruction? So let me know in the comments if you've had any sort of, knowledge around this area or could help me out with this particular bit. But that's basically the update. I mean, my plan is that I will hopefully get this up on GitHub pretty soon and let people see the progression, through version 1 to version 8 on to version, whatever I eventually wind up getting to see where we are. Now, the emulator itself is on version 7, because like I say, that hasn't changed much. But again, I'm ripping that apart at the moment as well. And if I just show you that quickly, the thing that's changing the most is my command line interface. So I've had to put things in like a store. Does it show it? Yeah. So I've put in a thing on the command line interface so that I can type in things like store at memory address this value. That's because I wanted to put in things when I was doing the testing into memory, but this data thing didn't exist, so I couldn't put that in. So I put it in manually on the command line, and then I tried to test this load and point it to the first memory address that way, just to make sure that all worked before I implemented this functionality in the assembler. So I'm now working on that, but I do have put in extra things in the command line interface. And one of the other things that I plan to put in here is a print. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with for example, ARM assembly. You might have a global printf, and you can call the printf function. So you just sort of, I don't know, you load message into R0, I think it is, and then I know it's be R1 in. But anyway, you then can't remember exactly, but you load something into these two, and then you branch, or in my case, you jump to printf. Now, the idea here is that when I get this type of setup, I will then be able to, on the command line interface, simulate the call to a C function like print or that sort of thing. So anyway, that's the plan for the next bit. It's try and get this all working. So I'll have new test cases to run and new stuff to do. So there'll be a load more work doing. I don't know if anybody's interested in this type of thing. If you are, I'll continue doing it. Let me know in the comments. If not, then I'll probably just load this onto GitHub and just carry on where I am. But the plan at the moment is literally get the the dot data, the dot text, dot global, all those declarations, or directives rather, fit working. and then the calls to the sort of C library simulation like printf or fputs or that fgets or all of that sort of stuff. So that's where I'm at, and I hope you got something out of this, and if you've learned something from the video, great. If you want to support the channel, again, I'm an author, so check out my books on xgipublishing.com. And thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.